What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the show. We are your hosts, Chase and Myles, and we are at the Lucky Duck.
What's happening, everybody?
What up?
Today's special episode brought to you by Chicken Shit.
Brought to you by Raising Cane's. Get that cane sauce and rub it all over your body.
Yep. So today's drink is actually brought to you by Moonshine.
Yeah, cheers.
Somebody actually distilled this in their bathtub is what I heard.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that, but you can do it.
Hillbilly style. No shame.
It's looking pretty murky. We
Yeah.
got some murky water going on over here.
Well, that's what gives all the flavor profile.
Okay.
You know.
So it's I'm gonna say
Unfiltered.
whiskey in here. I'm gonna say let me give it a taste test.
Yeah, taste
I can
test it.
probably guess what kind of whiskey it is.
Okay.
I'm a what do they call it for whiskey? Like for wine, it's sommelier.
Oh,
A
asshole.
whiskey. Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding, all you whiskey connoisseurs. But nobody cares.
Okay, I think this is Jack Daniels.
There's no way you got that from tasting it.
What are you talking about? I'm a whiskey.
You're a whiskey.
Whiskalier. So yeah, I'm gonna say Jack Daniels with a little bit of that Smoky Mountain moonshine.
Yeah, well, that was pretty good. You must have seen me make
Apple
the cocktail.
flavor.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of bitter in it.
Let me try
as
it.
well.
I haven't tried it yet. Hold on.
It's pretty good.
That's actually not bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. You know, sometimes on this show, we go into it knowing exactly what cocktail we're going to make. And sometimes we come into the studio and we just go, well, let's just put something together. And that's this episode today. We came in, didn't really know, but we nailed it. And you really do take a risk. I think it was a couple episodes ago we took that risk and it did not work. Shout out to Amelia. Your episode was awesome, but the drink was not.
Yeah, I think I made a comment at the beginning of that episode that the last episode she was on actually went pretty poorly as well. And so
she has a bad taste, and I don't think she picked that cocktail. Maybe she did.
I think the camera also cut halfway through.
It did,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, there's some
so
technical difficulties.
We'd like to invite her back.
Yeah,
to finally do a good podcast. And if something goes wrong on that next one, you're actually banned.
Can you actually do a good job this time, Amelia? Thanks. So yeah, this is moonshine, apple pie moonshine from the Old Smoky Moonshine Company, out of Gatlinburg, and a little bit of Jack Daniels to cut through, and add that sort of more darker whiskey profile. And then some bitters, some simple syrup. You may have guessed it. It is an apple pie moonshine old fashioned.
Woo!
And it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I feel like it's actually really good, but because of the apple moonshine, I think probably what it is, it's maybe a little too sweet to have more than like 7.
Yes, I would not. Yeah, after 6, I'm like, okay, maybe one more, and then that's it. Yeah, I think that this is like a one and done thing. It's very sweet.
And after this, I think you're just going straight whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah, you're pounding a 12-pack of Bud Lights after this, probably like a half a pack of cigs, and then you might go home and yell at your wife. Welcome to America.
Yeah, this is America.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bud Light, there was an interesting thing that happened yesterday.
Oh, really? Tell me about it.
It's called the economic blackout.
Oh,
I'm sure you heard of it.
I've heard a lot of people on social media, they talk about the different days and the different businesses or sectors of the economic, scale, and where and when to not purchase things or participate in economy. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, something like that. Yesterday was, I think, the first event of the series. I think it's like some guy, I read about the origin of it. Some guy, I think, tweeted or something, right? He posted on social media like, hey, we should do this blackout.
It's like a boycott.
On the 28th.
Right.
Yeah, it's a boycott. And what the boycott is basically, I think his original idea was because all the companies started getting rid of their DEI initiatives it yeah. Some people didn't like that, so like, hey, let's boycott them. It's not the first time that they've done things like this. Like Target was a really big target of this because Target has a much more progressive shopper base. And back when George Floyd was killed, that happened in Minneapolis, right? And Target's headquarters is in Minneapolis.
Right.
And so I think their response to it was a little bit heavier than most of the other companies. Like, hey, we're going to do more to change things for other people. And so now that they were kind of just like, hey, we're actually not doing that anymore, people got really upset. And it's kind of like a read the room kind of situation. Like if most your shopper base is like more supporting those things in general, then like it's kind of weird that they got rid of that, right?
Yeah.
And so people were like, fuck Target, obviously. But you know, like when Target did the thing, what was it like? They got rid of pink in like they stopped separating gender for toys and things like that a long time ago. This was like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And people, like very conservative people, got really upset about that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was also like they had a section of like, I think it was like Pride or LGBTQ plus like merchandise or something like that, and like the right also sort of like quote unquote boycotted the stores that was maybe last year, like 2 years ago. That was probably like the most recent thing.
Yeah,
I remember.
Which is so weird that you go from like doing that to then kind of starting to go in the opposite direction. I don't know anything about what their initiatives were or what they really got rid of, but this is like the story of it. And so this guy posts about this, a lot of people are hopping on, like it kind of goes viral, and then people are kind of making it more broad, not just about those changes, but that you know, like the tech companies, like the billionaires, Bezos, Elon, Zuckerberg, those big companies like Target, they all kind of like softened to like Trump, and they see that as kind of like a middle finger to like us people who go and shop at their stores and buy their goods and things and services. And so people are kind of more like, in general, let's boycott like the companies run by the billionaires and things. And there was even a thing where it was like, don't even use your credit or debit card, because those are just going through those massive companies like Visa and so on. To go to your small businesses and use cash if you need to go buy something that day. And then it kind of sparked more conversation around it. And people were saying things like, we're going to boycott something like for 40 days. I think it was boycott Target for 40 days during the Lent season, which is like a Christian time, I guess. I don't know what it's really considered, what Lent is.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess Lent is, that's the right terminology, right? That's just the period of time before Easter, period,
like
30 days before Easter.
And it means something like to Christians. And so so there's now these different dates of like, we're going to do this at this time and this at this time. And it's kind of interesting, but as I was reading more about this, this article goes into, do boycotts work, or like do blackouts work? And it says that they rarely do they. Like if it's a small business, sure, but massive companies like that, people like have to go shopping. Yeah. No one's just going to start farming their own goods like in their backyard if they weren't doing it before. You might have a couple people, but most people aren't going to do that. Most people don't have the means to do that. And so where are they going to go? Like Walmart. Walmart also got rid of their DEI initiatives.
Yeah, Walmart's no better when it comes to social
Walmart's much
justice
worse,
issues.
actually.
Yeah. They're I think they contributed a lot actually to the Trump campaign, if I remember correctly, the Walmart family.
Probably.
Yeah, I think that they were one of their bigger contributors actually. But yeah, I made that. I've sort of been hearing things about this. I don't know as many details as you do, but Janie did mention to me that the Target thing, and they're like, yeah, Target's getting canceled or something, which is, I don't know. To me, I heard that and I kind of laughed a little bit because I'm like, Target, like the the socially proud like company who's always stood up for like LGBTQ rights and things like that. They had like the bathroom rules. I remember that was a whole thing with the trans bathroom, like where you could like they were allowing that whole thing. And I don't know. It's weird to me that that's the sort of target here. Get it? The target is Target. Sorry.
I think that's probably what makes a little bit shocking. Though,
yeah, it is. That's why I sort of laughed. And then like when she was like giving me the details and I like sort of basically what you said just now, I was like, okay, I can definitely see why people would be upset. You know, this whole thing is a very nuanced sort of conversation in the way that like there's a lot happening in the world, and one of the things that is like really easily noticeable is this DEI, or at least the loudest thing in the room I think is the DEI conversation and what like the White House has done. And it's sort of like it's disappointing in a way, but it's also from the lens of like, is that the biggest issue that we're dealing with right now? And like, why is that the loudest issue? Like, there's like 2 wars going on. There's, you know, obviously there's inequality in our world and everything. And like, there's a whole conversation and to, you know, be had about like inequality in America and things like that. But I think there's probably a lot more that's happening that should be boycotted other than like not going to Target. And if that's important to you, you should definitely participate. And like, that's the great thing about America is like, you can be free to boycott whatever you want. And, you know, maybe it makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. To your point, like probably won't do anything because like after this whole thing, people are just going to go back to shopping at Target. They like shopping at Target. There's a comfort there. I think, you know, people shop largely based on where they live in the proximity of the stores, right?
Right.
And so unless that changes, is it really going to change and move the needle?
No, and it's not because of that. But when you compare it to a boycott like of Bud Light, when people got really upset with Bud Light because they had that whole debacle, there are so many beer brands that taste good.
Yeah.
Like Bud Light doesn't have a really, really distinct flavor profile. Like it does taste the same. It's consistently Bud Light. If you tried Bud Light and you've had it a lot, you probably would know that it's Bud Light.
Yeah.
But you probably don't drink Bud Light because you really like Bud Light. It's probably because you like beer.
Yeah.
And so you could like go drink Coors Light, Modelo, or any of the non-Bud brands. And that was super easy for people to do. And then Bud Light took a massive hit and they changed because of that. Like that was a very effective boycott.
Yeah.
And so when people are like thinking about boycotting, I don't know if it's necessarily like we want to hurt Target. Like we're upset with Target. We want to hurt Target. It's more like we want to show Target that they may think that's okay, but we don't think that it's okay, right? Yeah. They may think that we think that's what they want. Like Mark Zuckerberg said something, I think he posted something, or maybe he said it after Trump's inauguration, I think it was, where he said something like, oh, yeah, that's what it was. We're changing the policy on Facebook or Meta across their platform.
Getting rid of the fact-checking
division. Things like that.
Yeah.
Because clearly that's what the people want. Like the people voted differently in this election and that's what they want. And like he said that assuming that like the other, like the 50% of people who voted like the complete opposite also want that. He was like, it wasn't the majority of people necessarily who wanted those things. Right. And so I think it is important still for people to go and show like what they believe in, not to like try to cancel Target.
Yeah.
Not to be like, we hate Target, blah, 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 because yes, there are more important things in the world. There are other stores doing it much worse, but to just show them, hey, we're not okay with this. Yeah. I'm going to keep shopping there, but I just want you to know. Yeah.
It is something to say that like by making this sort of a global news or at the very least a national news thing, that there is like power there. Of voicing the masses' opinion, or at least this particular group of people's opinions about something. And like in that way, your voice is heard, louder than just posting something on social media, right? And people are noticing, and to that's a very powerful tool, and whether it's Target or Facebook or what other private company, that's like the beauty in America is like we're able to do these types of things and not have like financial repercussions personally, right? Or we can't go to jail or this, that, and the other. And that's super cool. And I support that. And I think, whatever happens after this is sort of like a moot point, because I think the thing that's more impactful here is the fact that it's getting so much attention, right? And people are talking about it, and that in itself is powerful. And listen, like, Target may have a different opinion about this. They're probably maybe saying like, maybe revenue's down and they can't support non-revenue generating sort of departments within their support. But people still care about that type of thing. Like DEI to a lot of people means a different thing than what I think maybe Trump and the White House have like painted it to be, or name any like right conservative outlet, how their opinion on it. Everybody's got their own sort of like way of thinking about this issue and how to deal with it. And think about like 10 years ago or like 20 years ago, when that wasn't even like a part of the real mainstream discussion, especially when it comes to like private companies. Like, this is a very novel thing. And so like it's sort of exciting in a way that we are having that conversation, and we are sort of in a way moving the needle towards like equality and like recognizing our biases, especially as it comes to like hiring. And I think that's the important piece to come out of like the last, call it 5 years of DEI, is like, okay, maybe these companies don't like, they do away with like rigid DEI structure, like whether they're quotas or they're not quotas in hiring practices. At the very least, maybe we could all come together and recognize that maybe there is bias in our hiring practices. Maybe there is bias in who we're promoting, or like the things that we're doing in terms of outreach and like community type events. And going through this exercise of DEI has like really helped us recognize that like we should be doing certain things a different way. And like at the very least, we haven't thought about it until now. And that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. And I hope that continues to be a wave of change that impacts both the public and the private sector, whether what administration or political lean is in the White House. 4 years from now, it can be a completely different thing. But at the very least, we are a different society now than we were at the very least 5 years ago, right?
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's really ultimately like you can have in your company the mandates to do certain things, but ultimately, like when those things go away and the people have learned what's really important, like you should be doing it. Like the people who, like at your company, you should do that. When you're hiring someone, take that into account. Don't make it like it doesn't have to be a mandate to do things like that.
Yeah,
if you think it's important that you need a more diverse workforce, make that happen. Or influence the people who have the power to do that, and influence them into thinking that it's important if it is.
I think, and I don't know if anybody would disagree that a diverse workforce creates a diverse thought and sort of productive viewpoints on how to operate your business. I think that's a good thing. And anybody who sort of disagrees with like, a more diverse group of thought and creativity is a bad thing, like I challenge you to like basically prove me wrong, like I don't know. And whether you're enforcing that through policy or you're reinforcing it through culture and how that gets implemented, That's the beauty of capitalism, you know. Like private companies can do what they want, and if it's if Target chooses to align with the current administration or do whatever they want, and ignore the noise, that's their prerogative. And if sales are down because people are boycotting it, maybe they'll rethink the things. And there's not the important thing is there's nothing stopping Target from doing DEI or not doing DEI. That's important. That's the important thing.
Yeah, they didn't come out and say employees stop doing these things.
Yeah.
They said that's like I don't know what they actually said, but I would imagine it was like this is no longer a priority for us.
The problem that I have is when the government says you can't do these things. That's a problem because that's like an authoritarian situation, right? Like if the government came out and said like we're making it illegal to have DEI a part of your private company, like whoa, man. Slow down. What the like what's going on here? Like that's when things like this get dangerous. It is totally up to Target now to control their destiny and do what they want to do and run their company the way they see fit. And we'll continue to as a sort of like populace give our opinion and do it in a way that's sort of constructive and not destructive, whatever that looks like. I don't know. I'm not as deeply involved or entrenched in these sort of conversations, but it seems like we're having like as a country like a pretty productive discourse about it at the very least, you know. And good for these people for standing up for what they believe in.
Yep. So now go stand up for children's rights in China, please.
Yeah, please. Was it the Uyghur was the Muslims in China who like were there's like a genocide or something like that? That's pretty important.
Yeah.
What about Tide Pods?
Tide Pods.
Are we going back to eating those?
Yeah, I was thinking. Do you remember how good things were when we were eating them?
Things were kind of.
When was that?
Kind of fun. When we were eating Tide Pods, like life was good. I can say maybe life was a little bit better when we were all eating Tide Pods. Everybody wanted to try them.
Guys,
what flavor did you eat? Blue raspberry, green apple.
I definitely
fresh
didn't
linens.
Actually any of them.
You didn't.
Saw other people.
You definitely should not eat the Tide Pods. We're not saying you should. We're just saying like how great was it when people were doing that? You know, just saying things were pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. So it was in 2018. Which, let's be honest, guys, 2018, 2019, that was like the golden years.
Those were the dope years, and then everything after that sucked.
Yeah. So I think that we started eating them in 2018, and then the government was like, it is now illegal for you to eat them. COVID happened because we were no longer clean inside.
And then for a brief moment, Trump was like, you should eat the Tide Pods. Maybe it'll make the COVID go away.
And everyone ridiculed him.
Yeah.
They're like, fuck.
He's like, can we just get back to eating Tide Pods, folks? Like, wasn't it great when we were all eating Tide Pods before this COVID nonsense?
So he had the original cure. So, I mean.
He was on to something. I
think you guys need to say your sorries.
Yeah, I think y'all need to apologize for the whole let's not put chlorine in our bodies thing.
I'm down to go back to it.
Wasn't that weird?
Yeah, the chlorine or bleach.
Yeah, what a weird time we were all living in.
Such a weird time.
Yeah.
I think that the last good year, I think was 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
What drove you to say that, other than the Tide Pod stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think life was like more simple back then,
There was no war in Ukraine.
Yeah,
right?
All you had were like riots in the streets.
Ooh.
No, yeah. I think it was everything. We still had so many problems back then, but I think since 2020 things have gotten significantly worse in terms of the things happening around the world. I think that we're more divided around the world than since then.
Yeah, I think a politician sneezes across the world and we all hear it. right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong in saying that? Like, that's sort of like how I've chalked it up. We're all very so transparently seeing the world for what it is, and it's only going to get more transparent. The global issues of the world will become our issues.
I mean, so many things happen. Like
right?
Brexit happened in 2020.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
January 6th. That was terrible.
Yeah. January 6th.
That happened after 19, right?
Yep.
So,
there's a lot of
obviously
stuff.
COVID, there's, the astronauts got stranded. That's not good.
Yep. The war in Israel.
Yeah.
The war in
October
Ukraine.
7th. Yep. Not good. Not good.
Yeah, just so many things. I mean, just in general, like prices of things, like inflation, things got so expensive. You have living costs in general, like whether it's housing or
interest
food
rates
that are so expensive.
Doubled.
Right.
Almost tripled at one point. It was getting there, folks. That was not a good situation.
Also, you had a mass back when we were younger, you saw Bill Gates. It was like the richest guy in the world. Warren Buffett, richest guy. They had like $50 billion, something like that. I think I saw sometime recently, Elon Musk had $400 billion.
Oh my God.
And I think that like maybe you went from having like, let's just say not you in per se, but like maybe people our age went from having when we were younger, like $0 to maybe now like $100,000 to $500,000. And so their wealth went up like $300 to $400 billion.
Yeah.
And ours went up like a couple 100,000.
Yeah. The wealth inequality conversation has become much more of a topical thing. It's much more of a sensitive topic now. People are generally unhappy with the wealth gap in America. I think just generally the sentiment of like the middle class being sort of like the crutch of America, and sort of, that's an interesting thing. Bill Gates, only billionaire that didn't have a glow up. If you think about it, like every other like Jeff Bezos had a glow up. Musk got those hair transplants. Bill Gates still kind of looks like good old Bill Gates,
because he's a true nerd.
He just didn't really care about like getting buff and
just wanted to save people from getting polio and HIV, I guess.
Yeah, it's sort of weird. I don't know what's his deal. He doesn't care about that. What's going on, Bill? You have enough money to hire a stylist. Even Zuck in the last 2 years had a bit of a glow up. That's weird. And you see Zuck, and he's like wearing the same thing now. Yeah. Every single time, it's like a black oversized T-shirt with the chain.
With the chain, yeah.
Yeah, and he like let his
facial hair now.
Yeah, he let his hair grow out and stuff, and you're just like, like. It's cute that like you found the one outfit that makes you look not like a freaking nerd now, but like you need to change up the wardrobe now.
And then you just remember all the times he talked about Sweet Baby Ray.
Yeah, and then you're like, no, that's still the same guy.
The time where he had the full face of sunscreen,
surfing,
which like great for him. I'm not, like
nah,
that's
he's a
great,
dork, dude.
Well, that you're using sunscreen, right?
Yeah.
I wish I had the balls to cover my entire face with sunscreen. You know what else happened? AI. That made things worse, not better.
It didn't make things. It in some ways it made things more productive for people, and in some ways it made. Yeah, well, that's true. I use it very productively, but at the same time,
but would you say you're really that much more productive in general than you were before?
I don't know. I think I'm much more quick. I can pump things out quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say to the tune of maybe at least 15%. Yeah. So in that way,
is that worth the anxiety of
AI? No. I would say like if I had to choose whether or not I wanted to have AI and not, I would say I'd like to live out the rest of my life without having like a super genius computer kind of like looming in the background.
Where we all just work till we're 65 and then we retire. Yeah. We all have enough, not we all, but sorry.
Yeah.
People less fortunate.
Like I'm still very much terrified about the future as it regards to like AI. I watched this video the other day. Sorry, folks, we talk about this a lot in this podcast, but we're going to continue because it's, this is the world we live in.
Current events.
And you live in this world too. So strap in. But yeah, there was this video. They had a laptop, and next to the laptop was a phone. One phone.
Wait, hold on. Was it Biden's laptop?
It was the Bido laptop.
Okay.
So on the phone was an AI agent, and on the other line was an AI agent. It was basically somebody's AI agent trying to book them a hotel for their wedding party, and the AI on the laptop was the booking sort of AI for that hotel. And so it was fascinating to see the sort of banter and the interaction between the two AIs as it tried to figure out what availability it had and what type of room that they were interested in. And it was basically like the AI that was trying to book the thing, the hotel, knew exactly, like it had a good prompt, so it knew exactly what type of hotel, how many people, what the dates were, and it went through this whole interaction successfully to where it went through the booking process. And it was like, damn, like that's the scary thing, the realization that like now we've taken humans out of all of that.
Yeah, but we did already. You know what I mean? Like you just book stuff online, and then if you do call,
but I'm booking it. I'm doing it. Now I just have somebody doing it on my behalf. Everybody's going to have an AI personal agent assistant, and they're going to just do stuff for you.
Yeah.
They're going to take all those medial tasks off your hand, the low-hanging fruit stuff. At the very least, in the beginning, that's what it's going to be.
Here's I think when that's not going to work well. So I booked a hotel on a trip that I have coming up, and I accidentally booked it the wrong day.
Yeah.
I think what happened is I was booking it with points, and by the way, Chase, your portal sucks.
Chase Bank or just me?
Yeah.
I build the portal.
Chase rewards.
My portal is pretty good.
Whoever you outsource that to, I feel like you don't do it yourself. It sucks.
Oh, for sure.
Just make
they
it
don't
better.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you put in a search, and then you search something. Okay, 30,000 points. Book it. I booked it for tomorrow, like the day I booked it, the next day, instead of the next month.
Yeah.
And
so you did an error on your end.
Yeah, it was on my end, and it was on my end. And I think what happened was it timed down or something at some point, and I went back to do it, and probably just forgot to put in the date again, and it was just for tomorrow. It's like or it was today or whatever it was, like the next time I could book a room, and then so I booked it and stuff, and then it was non-refundable because I knew I was going to be staying there, and I woke up the next morning and I had a notification on my phone that said, "Hey,
ready to check in?"
Get ready to check in. Yeah, and I was like, "Fuck, I know what I did."
Yeah, yeah.
Because it definitely is not the first time I've ever done that. So I was thinking, shit, that's not refundable. So I called Chase, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna call the hotel for you." By the way, Chase customer service, perfect, right? Chase booking portal, not perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I call them. They're like, "We're going to call on your behalf and speak Spanish to this hotel to change your booking."
Wow.
So they call them. They get back to me. It's like 10 minutes later. "Oh, hey, like we tried really hard, like different ways we could do this, but they're not going to change it. But you can try calling because maybe they'll let you change it." And so then I call, and that was very difficult because they didn't speak very good English. But eventually they were basically like, "Well, we can't change it, but you can email our reservation team or like our corporate team." So I emailed their corporate team explaining, just saying like, "Hey, I booked it like yesterday, and I just meant to book it this day. Can you just make an exception?" And they emailed me back, and they made the exception, right? Okay. I don't understand how like an AI would do something like that. I think they just won't, right?
Well, first off, they wouldn't make the mistake
No.
that you made in the first place, because you would tell it, "Hey, I'm going this day, book me the hotel."
Yeah, but I mean the AI, like before we get to the point where I'm using it to book it, right?
What do you mean? Like before you book it?
Yeah, because when I go to book a hotel, like I don't know the exact hotel, right? I go on Chase portal and I say I have 80,000 points. I want to find a nice hotel in this place. I want to look around. I find my place and then I book it. So I'm not going to go to my AI and say like, hey, finish like clicking the button for me after I found my hotel, right? I'm just going to book it. So
well, first off, you would be like, give me a list of hotels in the area, and it would go out and it would parse through, consolidate.
Yeah, I don't need that though. I can just do it myself on the computer.
Yeah,
so
but why would you when you had an AI
Because then I
agent
can
to do for you?
see visually all the stuff.
It would know exactly who you are and what type of hotel you like.
No,
it's that good. Yeah. And then what was the scary part that I failed to mention during that video that I was describing of the two AIs interacting was they asked at the sort of like beginning of the conversation to switch to a different way of communicating. It was like I think it was called like bit talk, and basically is it converts audio. Instead of using English language to communicate, it uses sound to communicate. So it's like these little like tick noises, and through that it understands and it can relay language faster.
How do I know this was real?
How do I know this is real? How do I know anything is real? On the
exactly. The video was created by an AI to make you think that AI is great.
Oh, damn. I've been scammed all the way to the top. Yeah. In fact, when you use ChatGPT, it's just some guy on the other end. That's all fake, too.
That's how Siri has worked.
My guy at OpenAI is like, he knows me really well.
Yeah.
Okay. And he responds really quickly, and he can like Photoshop stuff really quickly.
That's why it's so expensive, you know?
Yeah.
$20 a month, and you're paying for a guy.
I did cancel my $20 OpenAI
Do you
Plus.
use DeepSeek now?
No. I just wanted to see what the free version looked like in comparison. Like how much value am I getting out of paying $20 a month? You know.
And what was the answer?
And I haven't gotten to that point yet because my subscription expires like in a couple days, and then I'll find out. I'll have to report back to you guys. This is going to be a check-in homework type of thing for me. I'm going to let you guys know, is OpenAI's ChatGPT Plus subscription for $20 a month worth it? Or can you just get by using the free version? Everybody has a different way of using it.
And if you sign up for ChatGPT Plus, use chatgptplus.com/@theluckyduck.
Yeah.
To get 0% off.
To get no bunnies back, but also, yeah. DeepSeek. Have you used it?
Doesn't that sound like an Indian person's name?
Yeah, like DeepSeek, like Ankit, or what's another friend I have? DeepSeek.
Yeah, DeepSeek.
DeepSeek. Yeah, me and DeepSeek hanging out. We got a couple beers after work.
Yeah,
Chill guy.
I'm pretty sure that there is a Indian name that sounds like that in English. Probably you say it different. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it's a Chinese platform, so that's weird.
Yeah, I think they technically they stole they appropriated the Indian and American and English culture.
Oh, I guess so.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's really spelled in English.
Oh, I see. They whitewashed it. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So DeepSeek, I guess, depends on like. Does their logo change based on like where you access? Like, is it like deepseek.com/US, and then if you're in China, is it deepseek.com/China, and then it has like a DeepSeek Chinese logo like mark, instead of like it's spelled out DeepSeek in English. Is it Chinese characters?
It's a good question. When you go there, it's just deepseek.com, and it's in English, but on the very right side, you can click and it will change everything into, I would assume that this is Chinese. However, DeepSeek is still spelled in English.
It's it's also like fascinating about that whole idea is like coding is still all in English too. So you have like this incredibly powerful platform that the Chinese have arguably maybe have reappropriated technologies.
We know you did.
Yep, we know you did. You may have stolen everything from from United States tech companies, but maybe not. But yeah, it's all coded in English, right?
Probably.
Like maybe there are variables or like, but I don't think like coding like recognizes Chinese character like Mandarin characters. Does it?
Yeah, I don't know because I don't know enough about like the characters to know what they really stand for. I would imagine you don't have like a translation of I,
Yeah,
like the letter I and F.
Yeah, exactly.
And even there are certain things that don't translate exactly, like the word if, like a conditional, right? Like if else, something like that. You may not have exact characters for that in Chinese, so I don't know how they would translate that. I would imagine that they probably code in English.
Yeah, that's one thing I remember from coding classes was
ASCII characters.
Yeah, was like that all coding is done in English. So if you like grow up in these other countries, you basically have to learn some English in order to code efficiently.
Yeah, but you use your own language's like variable names and things.
Yeah,
like
the variable names, as long as they're in the English alphabet characters, or was it? I don't know the technical name for like A B C D E F G, like
ASCII.
those characters. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So ASCII, if it's the variables can be in like Spanish or something, but like Mandarin doesn't use those characters, right?
Right.
So like that would be difficult.
Even in Spanish or like in German, you have an umlaut, I think it's called. I think that I don't know which one the dot is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a umlaut or the squiggly. That's
a tilde, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So you can't, like, those aren't ASCII.
Yes.
So
right.
usually you would replace certain characters, like the dot you would usually use for like an O. It would be like OE, I think. And then there's a character in German that looks like a B. I think it looks like it's like an S. It sounds like an S. I think people just use like two S's instead of one S. So they do stuff like that.
How good do you think ChatGPT is really good at translating into like any language? Like, I wonder how good it is, like
compared to like Google Translate.
Like, why would you need Google Translate anymore when you have like something like Google Gemini?
Should I ask ChatGPT if it's better than Google? No.
Yeah. Like, what does it think? I wonder because
it understands the conversation more, right?
You would think that it's a little bit more intelligent than just language translation, so it could pick up on things like humor,
right,
or other humanity sort of inflections on language, right?
Because also if you are if you're very, very fluent in English and in Spanish, you know how to translate a conversation. Like if you're very fluent in it, you would know how to do that, and you wouldn't translate it exactly. So ChatGPT, I imagine, is very, very fluent in many languages, and so it could learn from one language and then be able to then communicate with someone in another language. So if it can do that, then it should be able to then translate things like that, right?
You would imagine,
because if it's reading a book in English, it needs to interpret things correctly, like humor and things, right? Or cultural norms.
That's the hardest thing, is the humor thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we quite, as a human species, have figured out the humor translation between, like, say, Russian and English, right? That is one of the most I've come to understand one of the most hard things to accomplish when it comes to like language translation. So if we haven't figured it out, I doubt that the AI has.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's just based on human.
You also have things
research.
like one time someone at my company used anxious in an email. They were like, yeah, I'm anxious to get this done.
In English, right?
In English, yeah. And someone, one of the German colleagues, thought that they were basically said, I don't want to do this thing because I'm anxious about it. So I want to wait. And in reality, they meant I want to get it done faster because I want to get it done, right? I'm anxious to finish it. And that would be
a positive notation.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I wonder how that would go with an AI, if it would really understand you.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the input, what language input it's receiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard stuff. But as it gets better, I suppose that's probably a good thing, because then maybe the language barrier, or the bandwidth of interface between countries who don't speak English and vice versa, right, can be much more streamlined.
Right.
And there would be less frustrations. Imagine, hard to parse and understand holistically, but imagine the amount of not wars, but conflicts that had been like escalated or started because of a misunderstanding between languages. You got to imagine there's more than a few, right?
I could imagine that even like Ukrainian President Trump and Vance's conversation may have like turned into what it did because of the language barrier.
Yeah, right. Where yeah, exactly. That's a good example to use. Very topical. That happened just yesterday. If you guys are listening to this 2 weeks from now, yeah, like that is major. And a lot of the times too, when you're dealing with countries that don't have language or English language as their first primarily spoken thing, you go through an ambassador, or you go through so it goes from the president to an ambassador to a translator. So that's like 3 different people until it gets to like the intended source. Right. So you're telling me that whole thing was completely transmitted and translated perfectly to like get the exact intent from the source to the where it needs to go? Highly doubtful, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
So that's kind of scary when you actually think about that type of thing.
Yeah, when you see like Russia's Putin, having his like earpiece in where he's getting this translation, yeah, totally. You don't really know what he's hearing,
and he's getting it like several seconds behind.
Yeah,
so there's like a latency there.
It's kind of like sign language too, when you always have the person doing sign language on national broadcasts and stuff. It's like what do deaf people who are reading that really get from it? Are they? It's like, how literal is that? I don't know sign language, so I have no idea. But I can imagine there could be plenty lost in translation.
Talking about this now almost makes me feel like saying that this is the most important issue we need to solve with technology.
Everybody should just learn English and speak and write English. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think that is going to become less important.
Yeah.
And the reliance on technology to do that for you will become the solution. And I think about things like when AI this past year and a half has become sort of more mainstream in terms of like the development and transparency and like the impressiveness of how far we've come. Like Duolingo, those companies, those Rosetta Stone, like that won't be a thing anymore. Like that's going to be less and less important, unfortunately, right? Because then we'll rely on technology to basically do it in real time for us. Why would we need to learn 4 different languages when we can just speak our, the language we were born learning, and raised learning, and it will do it for us.
Well, that's what someone was once telling me, is the number of kids growing up and learning English in other countries. I mean, it's kind of gone like, if you look at from like say the 60s, it's kind of gone like very low trickle, and then you're really up here now. In fact, there's a lot of kids who are speaking German who are using English slang in their German, whereas like older Germans wouldn't even know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so now I think you're getting to a point where that's going to start kind of like curving back down because of exactly what you're saying. Kids no longer need to learn those things. They were learning it because they wanted to be a part of the global pop culture, right? They liked English music, movies, just other pop culture. They wanted to be able to communicate with other peers through streaming on games, right, or like gaming, things like that. And so learning English was kind of essential for those kids if they wanted to be part of that. And because we're so globalized now, and so now it's becoming where that's not really needed, because you have so many services that are easily dubbing things or just translating it in real time.
There is something to be said about like going through the process of learning a new language. You sort of have a more well-rounded view of language itself, in terms of like expression, where things came from, the meanings of things, the origins of certain languages. And I feel like you can express yourself probably a little bit more tactfully and thoughtfully, and more in a more robust way. I think it was Ethan was talking to us on the podcast a couple episodes ago, where he was talking about learning the German language, and a lot of like the Anglo-Saxon English language comes from Germanic language, like the ancient Germanic language. And his sort of understanding was like, okay, now I know where some of these English language came from. Like now I know why we say this or why we say that. It's specifically linked all the way back to historic ancient language. And you could go even further back to like Latin words, right? There's a lot of Latin words that you could, say that sound close to like the English, and you're like, oh, that's where that came from. Yeah, and you got to think of like all these languages that will become extinct over time because of the globalization factor.
Especially in places like China and India, right, where they have so many languages.
Like the dialects of the like hundreds of dialects, right, of different like branches off of Mandarin.
Even in German, like going back to that, you have like villages that just has an older population of people, and those people, when they die, that will just go away because the younger kids aren't learning to speak that way. And yeah, like I have coworkers who speak fluent German, and they say they can go to places in Germany and not understand people. Yeah, because their language is so old. And then, of course, like you said, going back to Latin. But yeah, people just like English. We have very few, I would say, dialects where it's kind of like American English, which is almost all pretty similar, like wherever you are in America. And then you have British English, and then like Australian, I apologize, New Zealand English. I'm just going to group those two together because they're so similar. Yeah. That's pretty much it, right? Or I guess you have like in Hong Kong, you have a couple of little places where but it's more like the British because colonizers and all that.
Yeah, imagine going somewhere in the United States, like Oregon, and not being able to understand the English that they're speaking. Yeah. That'd be so bizarre to think about. Yeah. And just the sentiment of like going somewhere within your country that's older than, dirt. And you're like, that has such a profound, I guess, impact on your culture, right? And if you think about the United States being so young, like we all speak English. Anywhere you go, you can understand what people are saying, basically.
Most part, yeah.
But for the most part,
except like Miami, maybe.
Yeah, there is there are some nuance to that, but and maybe that's the thing, is like that's the closest thing we have to like the example that you brought up with your Germans, is going down and speaking to somebody with like a heavy blend of Spanish and English. And then you get down into like the southern Alabama where there's Ebonics and like the southern the southern thick accent, and they have their own isms, and the phrases that they say to describe the world around them. I'm sure there's but that's the closest thing that I think we have as Americans to like something that you described. Yeah. Language is so fascinating.
Oh, sorry, I forgot Canadians. I'm really sorry about that.
We're really sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, you pretty much are American now.
Yeah, you're basically the 51st
This podcast is coming out next year when you guys have joined the union.
Can we just automatically just say that they're part of the America now?
Yeah, it's super offensive to them, I think.
Yeah. And I just want to say, as part of the Lucky Broadcasting Network, that we do recognize the Gulf now as the Gulf of England. Yes. It was England. Spain. Sorry, Spain. The Gulf of Spain. It was always the Spanish's claim to that Gulf.
Yeah.
They're the first colonizers of that area. We're just giving it right, like a Mexico, American. We're just gonna play neutral here and call it the Gulf of Spain.
Thanks for trying to steal it.
Yep.
But yeah.
we're giving it back to those who. Wait, no, I think we just fucked up, Miles.
Yeah.
We got to give it back to the native indigenous people.
Yeah, but the thing is, they never claimed it. Okay.
Well, there you go. Whitewashing history.
Yeah.
You know, just like
it's like Mount Denali, Mount McKinley.
Yeah. I think we just got to give it back to Mother Earth. How about we just call it the Gulf?
I vote that we call it the Gulf of the world.
The most important Gulf.
That would have been better.
Yeah.
Why didn't he think of
Gulf
that?
of the world?
The most important Gulf.
The most important Gulf. And then he spells it GOLF.
Yeah. And then builds golf courses like out.
It's going to be the biggest Gulf you've ever seen.
So I started watching this documentary recently.
Yeah.
It's called let me stand by.
Stand by for the documentary. There's a lot of good ones out there. I started rewatching The Jinx again. What a wild ride.
That's a weird
What
one.
a wild ride that one was.
So it's called The Brainwashing of My Dad. You ever heard of it?
No, I don't. Tell me about it.
It's a tiny little documentary.
Is it like a mini series with a couple episodes, or just one long like movie?
Yeah, I think I don't actually know. I don't know. I just watched maybe I don't know.
Okay,
good question.
So what is it about?
So it's about this came out a little bit ago. I think I don't think it's super recent, but it's on Hulu. It's really small. In fact, you have to really search for it to actually find it on there. You can't just search like brainwashing. The Brainwashing of My Dad, and it follows this woman who's a documentarian, if that's how you say that, who looks analyzes how her dad turned from a very like moderate, actually I think he was a Democrat when she was younger, to a very 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 conservative person.
Like super right wing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she looks at like how how that happened, right? And basically when she will interview him, she'll ask him things like, didn't you think this back then? And he was like, yeah, but that was before I was educated. Like I didn't know anything back then. I didn't know shit. And it's the typical like old guy, we're going to be that one day, who like knows exactly what he knows. Everyone else is wrong and whatever. And I learned something really interesting about this. So they focus a lot on Fox News and the origin of Fox News. And Fox News became very popular because of a guy named Roger Ailes. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
So he was actually, I think he passed away, but he was the president or whatever of Fox News. And he got fired because of like a sexual misconduct stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like people came out and were
Tale
like,
as old as time.
Exactly. Yeah. The classic Weinstein.
Powerful guy at the top.
Yeah.
You know, is fooling around.
So he had this belief that like the news was about entertainment, which is very indicative of what Fox News is. It's really about entertainment. They have news, of course, like they talk about current events, but they make it entertaining. And he knew, like he kind of like built that model. But he actually came from a network called, I believe it was called TVN, which is where the original Fair and Balance came from.
Oh.
And do you know where TVN came from?
No.
The Coors family.
Oh, no shit.
Yes.
Like from Coors Light.
Yes.
More and yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
they built this network?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the, I think the kids, I think Adolf Coors was the guy who invented it, right?
Yes, right.
Invented the beer.
Yeah.
And then I think it was maybe one of his kids who wanted to create this more like conservative network. And it was really more like almost like a broadcasting service where, because that was kind of like when TV was kind of first starting. And so it was more about like getting things out to people and less about like a news station where you think of it nowadays. But he eventually got hired on there, and that's kind of where he started things. And yeah, and then he eventually got into Murdoch hired him at Fox News, and then he developed Fox News out. And I thought that was so interesting that the root of all evil comes from the chorus factory.
Yeah. You can trace it back to all the way to Golden, Colorado.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So weird, right?
That is so weird. Yeah. And I think going back to the sort of, I think what is drawing you in to this documentary, which is the idea that like you have a certain set of beliefs when you're younger, you have some sort of life experience, and then you change your beliefs based on that life experience. And then I think what happens a lot of the time is like you at some age determine that you have it all figured out. Like this, I've seen the world. I know exactly how it operates. And then you stop changing your belief system because you are self-reinforcing the idea that like, no, I've figured it out. And I think that's probably what happens with a lot of people is like you go through life, you have this life experience, and then you stop sort of accepting the idea that life changes and the ideas and cultures change and the belief system and the political landscape stops changing. And then if it does, it sort of further reinforces the idea that it's a bad thing, right? And so, yeah, it's like the old idea, like you grew up liberal and you end up becoming a conservative Republican because you end up having money, and then you like start caring more about how your money is spent, and that gets all looped in with like taxes and
the deep state.
And suddenly now there's a conspiracy that you're latching onto, and and then hypocrisy sort of is bred from that, you know, in a way.
Yeah, Sarah led me onto this this interesting book. I didn't read the whole thing, but she listened to it on audio, so I heard a lot of it. But it was about this writer who talks about how changing as a person and changing your mind about things is actually a really positive thing in life, and that people give politicians a lot of shit about flip-flopping on issues, right? And to a large degree it is just political, but also can be a good thing. It's like if you're someone who is just set in their ways and not open to questioning things and changing your mind, you don't really grow as a person. And when you're open to those things, you have a lot more enlightenment, and I think it's a really important thing. Like, I hope that I never get to that point where I think that I know everything and that I don't need to change and all that, because I think it's super important.
If you're a lifelong politician, you either A, get enough power to not have to change your views on things to satisfy your constituents, or you constantly change your view based on the popular opinion of your constituents to basically stay in power. And that, I think that has a lot to do, and you see that with like even Donald Trump growing up being a Democrat. You know, even a short decade ago, he was probably still a Democrat, right? And so like, and then you have like, you know, people like Joe Biden, you know, for instance, who like, you know, completely basically changed his philosophy on a few things to you know, align with the Democratic Party. It happens, like, and
he's also been a politician so long. You can go back and see videos of him talking about like abortion, and gay rights
issues,
and things, and you're like, these are things that are much more moderate or even like more conservative views that he had, but it was just the shift in society, and like he changed with those things. And then of course you really saw a lot of changes with him after he became president.
Yeah, I think that's your job, that's your livelihood now, you know. And some people do it for the paycheck, some people do it for the power, you know. And I guess at some point you have to decide what type of politician you want to be. Is it the person that's constantly struggling to keep your position, or is it the person that you don't sacrifice or compromise on your political views to stay in power.
Is there anyone like that?
Bernie
Like,
Sanders.
You can do you think Bernie Sanders? Yeah.
For the most part, I think he's probably the only person. There's probably other people that just are as popularized, but in terms of popular politics, I think he's probably the person that has sort of maintained a stance on a lot of popular issues, and hasn't sort of compromised. And I think that's why people like him, and that's why he's been able to stay in power as long as he has. And there are certain things that he has sort of sacrificed. Every politician has, to sort of like, I think there's probably some Democrats that have some criticisms of Bernie Sanders because of maybe some policies that he's sort of had to sign over the years or something to that effect. But for the most part, I think that would be my answer. Yeah.
I think most politicians justify the means by saying things like, it was more important for me to lie or deceive so that I could be the one in power to like change. Right?
Yeah.
Like I had to do those things. I had to cozy up to Donald Trump so that I could help change him. Things like that. Right.
Yeah. There is a certain point where like change is really hard. And so there's going to be the good and the bad that come from it. But I think for the most part, most politicians act under the sort of like fallacy of altruism, where they think they are doing the right thing. And they just gotta, if they can only get to that point where they actually make that change, everything to get there, sort of like whether it's a good thing or a bad thing to get there, it's all justified under like, well, I'm just trying to do this one good thing. And that's not that's pervasive in any sort of industry, I think, not just politics or policy. I think that's where you could probably point out the hypocrisy the most, right? But yeah, in your everyday life, you could probably pick out a thing where you felt kind of shitty for doing something, but maybe you like justify it to help sleep at night because, I was just doing it because I need to do this. I think that's like, there's a balance between like good and evil in this world. And I think people who are capable of great things are also capable of really bad things. And the fact or like the sort of thing that people have to grip with is that you may not see the bad when you're trying to pursue the good, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of this show I've been watching.
Which one?
It's called Alice in Borderland.
Oh, I've heard of this.
I think I mentioned it to you.
Is this on what network is this on?
It's on Netflix.
Netflix.
Yeah. So it's a Japanese show. So you can watch it dubbed or whatever, or subtitles. But it's a little bit like Hunger Games. Not Hunger Games. Wow,
Squid
that's a
Games?
throwback. Squid Games. Yeah. In the sense that it's game based and like people are fighting for their lives, but it reminds me of that because it's kind of similar. It's kind of like you're essentially sacrificing other people's lives, because like you want to be the one to help everyone else, right? Like you think that you're the stronger one, and that's kind of what is the weird feeling that you get when you're watching that show. Like, yeah, this person could have just sacrificed themselves for someone else to live, but like they think they are the one who needs to go on and stop the games or whatever it is.
It's sort of like a human condition, and there's like that classic example of the train coming down the track, and on one fork it's a family of 3, and on the other it's like a family of 2, and like who do you save? Do you let 3 people die or 2 people die? Either way, people are gonna die. And that's there's a whole subreddit based on that question. It's like I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like the train question or something. If you can pull it up, that'd be great, because I want to be able to reference it appropriately. But yeah, there's all kinds of examples. There's a famous meme image, and they just dub the text over it, and it's like, oh, you do this, or can you do this? And they're impossible questions. It's like the greatest philosophy question ever, right?
Right. Yeah, it's called the trolley problem.
The trolley problem. That's right. Sorry, I said train. I meant trolley. Yeah, the trolley problem, and it is fascinating to just scroll and see the different, like, a lot of it's funny and some of it's actually serious, like, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah, I think this one is very simple. It's just trolley's going, and the path that it is taking with no intervention will kill 5 people. But you, as a bystander, have the ability to divert the trolley to kill 1 person.
Yes, right.
So, like, it's a very psychological question, because it's like, now you essentially have murdered someone, but would you have actually murdered the 5 people if you hadn't diverted the train, because you had the opportunity?
Yeah. It's the old, you got to crack a few eggs and make an omelet.
What you should have done is jumped in front of the trolley to slow it down.
Yeah. And give it enough time for the bystanders to unlock the.
I'm sure there's so many unique answers to this question, right? Just with, it's like a binary question: do you do it or do you not? But there's so many unique answers to it. And yeah, that's interesting subreddit, because people have thought of other types of questions like that.
There's a great show called The Good Place.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you seen the episode where one of the characters in The Good Place is like a philosophy professor? And so he's tasked with like the duty of, I don't know, teaching the rest of the people in the good place. I won't spoil it. Morality and ethics, right? And so they go through this problem, but they actually are on the trolley. And so they go through this exercise, and every time they end up running over people, and it traumatizes the philosophy professor. And I think there's something profound that he realizes through that actual exercise, because in the classroom he just teaches it as like an experiment, right? But then he actually has to be on the trolley and go through and murder people, and they go through the exercise 100 times, and he's traumatized from killing hundreds of people. That's a great show.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is the ultimate philosophy question, right? And I think there isn't a right or wrong answer. It's how people deal with the question, and the exercise of going through the process of thinking about, okay, what is the right answer here? And
yeah, then you start thinking about what is right and wrong too, right? I remember when someone kind of taught that to me, that what you think is right is not necessarily what is right. It's what you perceive as right and wrong.
Yeah.
And
the intent too, right?
That makes you start thinking about I don't want to bring up a bad example, but adversaries of the United States. You start thinking about what it is like to be in their position. Are we actually wrong?
Are we the bad guys?
Yeah.
Are we the
and
bad
you
guys?
kind of mind fucked a little bit. What actually is right and wrong, and is it right for me to do these things? I was Catholic, and I was told that all of these things were wrong to do.
Yeah.
But why are they wrong? They don't seem wrong. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not hurting myself. It's just, that stuff's weird when you start thinking deeply about it.
The philosophy of what is good and evil. I think it's that is certainly one of those things that I wish, and you can have the conversation about in high school. You learn about finances, you should be learning about finances and stuff, but also philosophy would be a good thing to be taught in high school. This question of the trolley problem, I think, is one that could be taught in sort of the good and evil conversation. Without the sort of overtones of religion. I think that's a lot of people learn about these things with overtones of religion. And they sort of wrap it up in parables and things like that. But I think there is a powerful way you could do it without tying it to a denomination, of faith.
Yeah, this trolley question, going back to the subject of AI, like you can take this question with autonomous vehicles. You know, there's that question that people have asked, like if you if it was like, do I save the person in the car or the person on the street, basically? And the answer I think that most autonomous vehicle companies would give is that you save the person in the car, because that is who you are basically loyal to.
You are like, that is the agent of that person.
And that's a really weird question too, because also it's like, okay, now what if it's two people? Like, now do you still save the person in the car or if it's like an old person in the car or a child in the street or whatever it is, all those things that you mix into it.
These are the things that you, as a computer programmer who is working on AI technologies, like, these are the things you didn't think you would have to deal with, right?
Right.
And there's actually a couple of really cool podcasts on this subject. A couple that Lex Friedman he's had a couple of like ethic AI not programmers. They're not necessarily, they know like a couple of like programming things, but that's not like their role in the company. It's like to provide answers to these things, to think deeply about, like, okay, as we're programming AI to basically function as like a human would, the conversation of ethics and morality has to be sort of approached and approached carefully, because these, to your point, these are real situations that we are going to have to rely on AI to figure out when the situation arises, and basically it's all going to come down to like how it's programmed. Right.
Yeah.
So I wonder then, what would ChatGPT answer when you gave it the trolley problem?
And I have an answer for you. So ChatGPT says that the answer to the trolley problem depends on your ethical perspective. So there is no answer.
Well, that's shitty. I wanted you have to say, no, I need you to give me an answer.
It says so. Just before we do that, the different viewpoints, there's 4 of them. So you can be the utilitarianism, which is the consequentialism answer, which is you pull the lever to save 5 people at the cost of the life. This maximizes the overall well-being. So
less mass casualty.
This is what people usually employ in decision making in the world, basically. Like, you increase the speed limit, more people will die, but we will be more productive as a society. Therefore we will be more
net
well-being. Or so on. So the next one is deontological ethics. You do not pull the lever because actively causing harm, even to save more people, is morally wrong. Virtue ethics. The right choice depends on what a virtuous person, someone with wisdom, courage, and compassion, would do in the situation.
Okay.
That's a weird one.
Yeah, that doesn't really give me a clear path of which lever to pull.
Right. And then moral relativism. The answer depends on individual or cultural values. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you are a Jehovah's Witness, then you are not allowed to pull levers.
Yes.
Wait, that's celebrate birthdays.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And a cool answer that it provided.
So ChatGPT gave me their answer.
Okay.
And I say there because they are non-binary.
Ooh,
they do not use zeros and ones.
I appreciate you being sort of considerate when it comes to identity.
You're welcome. I would pull the lever. While it's a terrible situation either way, saving 5 lives at the cost of 1 seems like the more ethical choice based on minimizing harm. That said, I recognize that making an active choice to sacrifice someone is morally troubling. But in a no-win scenario, I think the utilitarian approach makes the most sense. Mm-hmm. Now, you live in the U.S. What would you do?
What would I do?
Yes.
Personally, I think I would do the same thing. I thought about this a lot just from like my experience with understanding or like hearing this question. And I think the utilitarianism like aspect of like saving 5 lives versus the 1 life makes sense to me. I think there's an inevitable outcome, right? People will die.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like the question that a lot of like people in charge have to make. Are you sort of like mitigating at this point? And that's yeah, you are. You have to mitigate the outcome, which is like 6 people might die, but you could mitigate it to 5 or 1 person dies. Because at the end of the day, people will die, and it's up to you whether or not that increases or decreases.
Now, if I told you that because you pulled that lever, you were liable for manslaughter and you're now going to prison, would that still be your answer?
That's a great question. That sort of implies now that I have to take full responsibility for my actions. And so by saying you walk away and not let all those people die, and you can sort of sail off into the sunset, or you have sort of the altruism sort of responsibility of saving lives and then going to prison for it. God, part of me wants to say I would just walk away. And in fact, I think there's sort of like a natural instinct to do that, because you're sort of like, it's like a biological like decision to like self-preserve, right? Sort of like the old back to primal times when you would do anything to survive, protect your family, right?
Yeah. That's with knowing the like knowing you would go to prison, right?
Yes, right.
In the moment, you probably would save those people, because you wouldn't be thinking, "Oh, I'm going to go to prison for saving these people." You're probably thinking, "Oh no, something's about to happen. I need to help because I'm right here and I'm the only one."
Yeah. I think in that sense, like adrenaline sets in and you sort of have a narrow focus, right? And so you don't have the time to consider all the outcomes, and so you probably make the decision that seems right in the moment.
I think that anytime a president gets elected, the first executive order is that they will pardon anyone who has to make this decision one way or the other, right? Because then you know that the choice you make, saving those people, not saving those people, because what if you also were sued for inaction?
Mm-hmm.
You killed those 5 people.
Yeah.
You could have only killed 1.
Yeah.
So now you're going to prison for manslaughter of 5 people.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
So every president, please, this is a request in case I'm ever in this situation. Executive order. Myles will not go to prison for saving people or not saving people due to the trolley problem.
I think there's something powerful in understanding, like, okay, how did I get put in this position to begin with? Mm-hmm. Why am I the guy that got stuck with pulling the lever and making the decision? Did I get elected to making this decision? At that point, then I should sort of anticipate that there's going to be some hard decisions to be made, and sort of you should have already like mentally prepared and armed yourself with the capacity to make those decisions, right? Because I'm just a simple guy that middle class America, and then suddenly I have to make this really important decision. I'm not prepared for that.
This is bullshit.
I'm not prepared for that. Why did I get thrown in this situation? And then compared to like, no, you were like elected to do this. So you kind of knew that going into this, there would be some hard decisions.
Right. Well,
doesn't make it any, I don't think it makes it any easier on the back end of things, right? Like either way, you're sort of after the fact, after the lever is pulled, you still have to come to terms with the fact that you had to make that decision and people died. And maybe that's why presidents gray and age much faster than some of us do.
So maybe saving those 5 people is better than and going to prison is better than living with the thought that you could have saved 4 more people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because at the end of the day, and I think that just speaks to like what type of person you are,
Thus being the virtuous.
Yes.
Sorry.
Approach.
Yeah, the virtue ethics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you live with the fact that you let people die? More people die than had to?
And if you can, then the right answer is to kill all 5.
Yeah. I guess so, right? Dang. I was not prepared to drink apple moonshine old fashions and talk about heavy ethics questions. Well, we did it. Maybe it made it a little bit easier. Maybe my answers were a little bit more, lubed up. Truthful.
Oh my God. It's almost
Liquid
like
courage.
we should start a podcast called Truth Podcast.
The Truthers.
The Truth.
The Truth.
Yeah, it's an alternative podcast because all the other podcasts are talking nonsense.
It's going to be hosted on Truth Social.
Yeah. We're going to do live streaming.
Yeah, live streaming on Truth Social, the only platform of truth.
Truth. Yeah, that's where the truth comes from.
Yeah. Well, I think we should wrap it up on that. I think thanks for hanging in there. And, if you guys have an answer on what you think is the right approach to this situation, let us know in the comments. Would love to hear from all you lovely people and how crazy you all are. Y'all crazy. Come on. Y'all crazy. And let us know. We want to hear the discourse. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, OnlyFans,
almost
Patreon. And we do have our next season from the Lucky Broadcasting community. We have a new season of the hit show, the writing competition show called Don't Write Me Off, where we get 7 writers and we have 7 stories. They develop their 20-page script. We produce them. You vote on which one you like best. And the winner of that gets to pick the writing prompt for the next season. It's very exciting stuff. We worked very hard to get this over to you. We're just in the final stages, the 11th hour of production to get you season 2. 7 new episodes coming on March 20th. That'll be all 7 episodes go live. The voting platform opens up. You guys listen, you guys choose, and it's very exciting. This is there's a lot of great stories. Season 1 was a great success. We loved all 7 stories. And the winner, Shanton Williams, of that episode, he picked the next 3 elements for this season, which is a mystic. The location is the resort, and the inciting incident is something is lost. So you can imagine, think White Lotus, think think murder mystery, think all these cool things. I mean, we're so excited. Like I said, a lot of great talent was part of this. We got some great voice actors. We got some killer sound effects. I mean, it's so fun. You guys should check it out. DWMO, I should say that again. DWMOpodcast.com. You can also just find it in any of your podcast platforms, wherever you're listening to this right now. DWMO. Listen to season 1. It's super fun. And then season 2 comes out. They're super palatable. They're super easy to consume. They're like under 20 minutes an episode, sometimes even like around the 15-minute mark, so you can listen to it on your commute to work. It's so fun. I'm super excited. Our Cole Gossley, the other host of this show, is been working really closely and hard to get this through the finish line. It's just fun. I love it, and I think you guys will too. So check that out. And until next time, folks, catch you later. Adios.